All hits, all the time. Star 98.3. You got to have those high hopes. It's 9 minutes after 7 o'clock, 7:09. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the program. And welcome, Jennifer's in the house today. Jennifer is here because she, along with a lot of other people, were upset about a little situation that happened a couple weeks back. Was it a couple weeks back?
23rd of June.
All right, whatever.
So almost a month ago.
Back at Lexington Park Library, where some drag queens decided they were going to do a story hour. And
which is popular across the nation. This is something that just hasn't. It is. It's very popular in different cities across the nation, the drag queen story hour. It happens all over the place, just not here. But Jennifer, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, first of all, how you got involved in this. You run the Facebook page Creepy Library.
Yes, I do.
If somebody looks up Creepy Library on Facebook, what are they going to find on your page?
Well, most recently, they're going to find posts about the Drag Queen Story Hour.
The one that took place in Lexington Park on the 23rd of June?
Correct.
Okay. And what? Okay, I need to say right now that if you have kids listening or if you have kids in the car, okay, they cannot listen to what's about to be said.
This
okay?
is probably
We're going to keep it as sanitized as we can, but trust me, you don't want your kids to be listening to this, so I'm going to say turn us off right now. I don't normally say that, but today I'm going to say it.
Which would probably, someone could conclude that if the subject matter isn't decent enough, for lack of a better word, to be discussed openly, then maybe it shouldn't be held at a library.
Possibly.
I mean,
Possibly, yes.
You could say that.
Yes. Well, I think it can be, I think all that can be done at the library, just not with kids involved.
Okay.
Well, I mean, that's where, because there's stuff in the library that are very explicit and things like that.
Yes. Okay. So they had their, well, let's back up. They made the announcement they were going to have their drag queen story hour.
Right.
Now, my contention has always been this, and I'll be very fair about it, at least as fair as I can. When I heard about it, I didn't think it was appropriate. I don't think it's appropriate. I do not think it's appropriate, and I've said that many, many times. But if I had kids, I simply wouldn't go. And why doesn't it begin and end there?
Well, I think, number one, the library and the taxpayers should not be in the business of sexualizing children.
Mm-hmm.
And as I just mentioned, if that's going to happen as a taxpayer, I certainly don't want to subsidize it.
But Jennifer, you have to admit, too, there are things out there that I don't want my tax dollars going towards, but that's what happens. It all goes into a pot, and then our representatives decide how it's going to be spent. I mean, there are things, seriously, I don't want my tax dollars going to, but I know that that's just the way it is being a taxpayer, right?
Yeah, correct, but I think children fall into a different category. We've always protected them and tried to make sure that if we're going to talk about sexual subjects, that we have appropriate people with the proper backgrounds doing so.
But sexual subjects weren't talked about at the Drag Queen Story Hour, correct? It was just about being different and how being different is okay. There wasn't anything sexual being brought up. The only thing that was maybe suggestive was the people that were doing the storytelling. Correct. And one gentleman was asked to identify himself, and he did. He said, "This is who I am, blah, blah, blah." Another gentleman asked who he was. He refused to say who he was in real life.
Yes.
But you have done some investigation. You have found out who he is, and what he does in his private life is not something you would ever want children involved in.
Correct.
Correct?
Not to mention it's illegal.
And male prostitution. You have mentioned that you have grabbed screenshots from his Twitter feed, and you gave an unsanitized folder of information to the St. Mary's County Commissioners. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
essentially the same information we saw this morning. Is that right?
It's just unsanitized,
Right.
and it's about double the size.
So the
of
stuff
this
we saw
package.
was sanitized?
Yes.
Oh.
The stuff we saw was sanitized?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you're kidding. Really?
All right, fair enough.
All right. Well, but it's soliciting men to work as nude housekeepers. Part of it, right? Part of that is what he's doing on that page.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It brought up a red flag when they would not reveal his name before the Drag Queen Story Hour. So we did some investigation, and eventually, after the Drag Queen Story Hour, they revealed his drag queen name, which is Stormy Vane. And I didn't actually do the research, but it took like 10 or 15 minutes, from what I'm told, to find out he runs a sex-oriented business under the banner of Stormy's Angels of Entertainment and Erotica. Some of his business offerings are nude maid services, nude maintenance service, nude handyman, nude personal trainers.
Which is not against the law.
Right.
Okay. None of that is against
Right.
the law.
Okay, but
Not that I would ever have a nude handyman. It sounds intriguing, but I don't think I would. No.
But okay, so you guys found out about all this, and you said this is not appropriate, and then what? Walk me through the process. What were you hoping to achieve through this whole process?
To get the Drag Queen Story Hour out of the library, is that right?
Just to point out why this is a bad idea. I mean, if a private group wants to rent a room and do this privately, and they can find people that want to bring their 3 to 8-year-olds to see this with no questions asked, then I would not be on here today. The problem is they want to normalize this, and they want the taxpayers to subsidize this.
Well, the taxpayers aren't subsidizing it. It's just the room at the library, right?
Well, we are subsidizing it because the taxpayers paid for the library and all the services that come along with getting a meeting room at the library.
But they rented the humanist organization. They're the ones who rented. They went through all the proper channels, and they're the ones who rented the room, right?
From reading the meeting room policy, it looks to me like nonprofit groups with an educational purpose, which the American Library Association is promoting Drag Queen Story Hour. This starts way up at
with the
top,
libraries, okay.
with the American Library Association.
No,
so
okay.
I'm sure they consider this educational, and therefore
So
my understanding is they get it for free.
The
Okay.
Library Association. So this is happening all over the place.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, all over the country.
Okay, well, I don't know that a lot of people know that. I certainly don't. I'm not keeping up
You
with
thought
what.
it was just something that happened in Lexington Park, Maryland?
Yeah.
No, all over the place.
Well, most people have a life to get to. They don't have to follow what the library's doing.
Right.
Right.
You know, last time I was in a library, I probably have a book out.
Right.
So, okay, so this is happening all across America, and it's your contention, and I don't think it's a misplaced contention, so I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying, that they are trying to legitimize this and make it, for lack of a better term, more acceptable, more normalized, and you have a problem with that.
I do, and it depends on what we're talking about here, because there are all these politically correct terms, so I'm not sure what it's okay to call these men.
I never know either. I get it wrong all the time. I got it wrong when the humanists were here.
I think they're drag queens. I think they are men that dress up as women and tell. I don't think any of them are trans. I think they just.
Yeah,
I think that's what.
Are they trans? Are some of them transgender? Are they transvestites? Are they just men who like to dress up as women in order to make money at a drag queen show?
And I've said this before, and I think it's fair to say, although I get a lot of guff for it, it is very difficult to keep track of, and it's very difficult to know what to say. I tend to misspeak a lot, apparently. But you know what? The end zone, the goal line moves continuously.
Yes.
And I find it very disingenuous for the groups that are out here doing this. When they themselves can't clarify basic terminology, and it changes from week to week, And so then we're made to be, are assumed to be misspeaking. We're intolerant. We're this, we're that, because we can't keep up with your craziness. And that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this, Jennifer. These are parents who sign up their children for this. They are the ones who are in charge of parenting those children. What do you say to someone who says, listen, this is my parenting choice. It's not your business to parent or protect my child. It's mine, so be gone with you.
Well, first of all, these parents were not told that one of the drag queens is running a male prostitution business. And I'm not sure if they saw these screenshots, if they would have been okay with taking their children there, pretending he's a princess, and having him read children's books.
But even if they knew that and they were still okay with it and said, we're fine with that, we're good with that, and this is what we want to expose our child to, is that okay? Would you then
because they are taxpayers too?
Is that okay?
They can do that privately, but once you start using public facilities, then you bring the taxpayers into the equation. And I don't want to subsidize this. I don't think most taxpayers want to subsidize this. And
you're hoping more taxpayers have a voice to say to the county commissioners, hey, listen, this is something we are not ready for, we don't want, we shouldn't have children involved in it. That's what you folks are looking for.
And I also don't want it forced down my throat. I feel like this is on an incremental basis being forced upon me, and if you object to it, you are immediately called a bigot, a homophobe, and that frightens people. You have I think that's one reason the county commissioners have kind of been hands off on this.
Why
you just
don't
have to be prepared for the name calling?
Why don't you just ignore it? Why don't you not go and worry about it? I mean, it's not something you would go to. It's obviously something you wouldn't take your children to. So then why not just not go?
Don't have it at a public facility that I'm subsidizing.
That seems to be the circling
crux
point.
For you.
So,
and I also don't think this is the end of this. You know that in some cities it is sponsored by the library.
Yeah. Well,
and some sponsored by churches too.
We're gonna take a break. We're do some business. We'll get back to this. We're talking with Jennifer.
Can you hang around? Because we.
Oh yeah, I'm assuming a lot. I want to keep you hostage.
She
here.
probably works. Has a job in.
You got other things to do today, Missy. So we're going to talk a little bit about this, but that seems to be the crux of your argument, if I'm not mistaken, that it's happening at a public venue. And I've said publicly, and I will say again, look,
so
I don't have.
If they had it at the Elks or the Moose or the VFW or something like that, you would be okay with that.
I would not be okay with it, but I wouldn't say anything about it. I would be privately disgusted.
I don't care about drag queens. I don't care. None of this matters to me in the whole scope of things. I've said it before. If you ever find yourself down in Key West and you get a chance to see the Tina Turner down there, it's the best show you'll ever see in your life.
But that's adults.
But that's adults. That's
right.
Big difference. Big difference. So I don't care what people do in their private life. I'm not here to pass judgment on anybody because I don't want it passed on me. But if I'm getting the context of what you're saying correct, your main problem is that this is becoming legitimized in public places, and I would assume you would probably say that the next step would be at schools, yes?
Absolutely. You
think that is the agenda? Let's get this. We're going to have a whole school assembly, and everybody's coming down for story hour at the elementary school with the drag queens.
It's already happening in states like California.
California's barely a state. But.
It's called comprehensive sex ed, where they are talking about transgenderism and other topics with kindergartners.
Kindergartners?
Yes.
See, that's too young. All right, listen, we're going to do this, and then we'll get back to that. All hits all the time. Star 98.3. It is 7:26. Our phone lines are open for you. We have a guest in the studio this morning. Jennifer is here, and Jennifer is kind of, I think, by active attrition, is representing the other side of the Drag Queen Story Hour. We had the humanists in. Samantha was here.
Right.
And she was explaining why they were doing this and why they should continue and probably will continue to do this. And, of course, you are on the other side saying, no, we're not having this.
So you were there when Ashley Morgan ran into the room and started yelling Bible verses and things like that. Were you there at the time or no? You weren't there? Were you there at the story hour?
No, they, I don't think I would have been allowed in. I mean, he had...
Well, to the library. You can go to the... That was a private room on the 23rd of June, right?
I did not go in the library this time because I was there
the last
2 years
time
ago for the so-called small town sex ed tour. And when Georgia and I went into the library director, Michael Blackwell, and a security guard followed us around with the security guard holding a phone at us, and I think he was recording us, and I really was not made to feel comfortable.
Right.
So it's like this time I'm not
so you
go in
stayed
there.
out of it. You stayed out of it, and then this guy. Well, don't you think that really plays into the opposition's hand, that you have somebody running in yelling Bible verses and disrupting and yelling it in front of a bunch of children and acting crazy, acting nutty? I mean, all kids see is somebody there standing, a big grown man yelling and screaming.
Well, considering that they were there with an adult man dressed up as a woman who runs a male prostitution business, I think having a man saying Bible verses is probably pretty mild compared to that. I mean, you know, these parents brought their children into...
Was he yelling this person? But
setting.
Was he just yelling Bible verses? Well,
I don't know.
You weren't there.
Okay.
You weren't there.
Okay,
so.
but it does lend itself to the idea, and this is what I always come back to. It seems like there's an awful lot of yelling going on in our society, and on both sides. It seems like the extremes in the society, and I'm not necessarily putting you into an extremist category, but you find yourself in an extreme situation. It seems like the extremists are sucking up all the oxygen in the room, and you got a male prostitute, guy, drag queen, and somebody over here screaming Bible verses. As what I like to think is a reasonable person, I can't align myself with either one of you. It all seems nuts to me. And
I agree.
So
That's why you didn't go last time.
So, but as someone who's involved in this, and I mean, you are involved, you're running websites, you're doing this, don't you think, isn't there some way you can sit down with these people and say, look, I don't care what you do. I'm not here to make your life difficult. I'm not here to squash your dreams or inhibit your freedoms or right of expression. But this isn't the right venue for this. Can't you have a reasonable conversation with these people without some person talking about the burning bush, the Ten Commandments, fire and brimstone?
But hold on.
This guy over here's got a sex toy demonstration going. It's nuts.
But weren't you at the commissioners meeting? And
Yes.
and Samantha was there too from the Humanist Organization. Is there an opportunity to talk, or is it too far gone? It's just too far gone to go, okay, let's sit down, let's go have a cappuccino, and let's talk.
Well, that brings up an interesting...
Because T and her don't agree on a lot of things.
I don't agree with...
And they sat down and they had a conversation and joked and laughed and made fun of each other. And, you know, at least there was common ground and there wasn't hate and discontent. It seems to me that there is hate and discontent when you're running in, not you, but with people that you know, run into a library and start... I see it as scaring kids, because he's not going to scare me. I'm an adult. But I see him as scaring children that are there. You know what I mean? Is there a way to have a conversation?
Well, first of all, I don't have an issue with Samantha McGuire and the Southern Maryland Atheists. I mean, they are adults. They are what they are, and they say what they are.
Right.
I've talked to her a couple times, and she's been pleasant. She's not the issue. The issue is this is being promoted by the American Library Association, which is the professional organization of librarians. in my opinion, it's being engineered by our library director, Michael Blackwell, who makes over $100,000 a year. The taxpayers pay for this man. And if you go to the American Library Association website, one of our own St. Mary's County librarians wrote an article on the that was posted on the American Library Association website talking about how if your community just isn't forward-thinking enough, if it's a rural, backwards community,
Really?
and you can't have a drag queen story hour at your library, find a like-minded community group to do it for you.
Did they use the terminology rural backwoods?
Okay, let's see it.
Dispatch from a small-town librarian. Do you work for a library in a small, rural, conservative community? And then she goes on, tips and tricks to being a secret librarian advocate operative. And then she talks about, like I said, your library isn't ready for drag queen story time. But that doesn't mean those programs can't still be held in your library. If your library has meeting space, reach out to groups like your local PFLAG chapter and let them know that they can hold meetings and host programs at your library.
Tips and tricks to be what? What was that terminology again?
Tips
That's
and
more concerning to me.
A secret librarian advocate operative.
See, that's more concerning to me than all the drag queens in the world.
Well, that's what I said. I don't have a problem with Samantha McGuire and Smash because
It's the libraries.
they're out there.
You-
They say what they are. They're honest.
And you have your issue is with the library
Yes,
association.
absolutely.
Well, that's interesting.
She also talks about sneakily fitting stuff into current programs. And she says, so you're not
sneakily fitting
Yes.
what things in what program?
So you're not doing drag queen story time yet, in parentheses, but you're probably doing regular old story time, right?
Can I just say one thing, and I may be off track here, but if she works in a library, maybe get a dictionary, because I don't think sneakily is a word.
I don't know if it is or not. But she says sneak stuff into regular
Yes.
story hour.
If you're reading a book about a mama bear and a papa bear, maybe when you read it, you just change it to be about two papa bears. And she
What is going on?
She
and
posted
that is from a librarian from St. Mary's County?
Yes. And she did have her name and library out there for 2 years. She posted this in 2017, right after the...
Is she still employed by the library?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Here
She
in
fits
Southern
right in.
Maryland?
Yes.
In St. Mary's County.
I need to have her on the air.
She has since scrubbed her name and library. The article is still there, but there's no longer a name and library.
Would you know how to get a hold of her?
Sure, I could.
Yeah, I've got her name right here.
I'll take it. Thank you
I
so
will
much.
absolutely be
Or
reaching out to
Mr.
this
Blackwell, right.
this young lady, because I don't want anything sneakily happening.
The library director, Michael Blackwell.
Somebody got their dialogue from Dr. Seuss.
He was interviewed in the County Times, and he claims that he has discussed this with her.
Oh, has he?
And that he knew nothing.
No, well, they never know nothing.
His favorite spiel.
They never know nothing?
That's
Yes.
a double negative. That's
Right.
wrong, too, T.
Wasn't there a character on an old TV show?
I know
Hogan's
nothing.
Heroes?
Yeah.
Yes, I know nothing.
Yes,
Well, listen,
Schultz.
okay, so here's
So
the thing.
it's the library you have an issue with. It's not the humanist organization or even the drag queens at that point. It's just that
Right.
it's being held at a public forum.
And he will continue to do this. And he first pulled this off with the small town sex ed tour, because if you recall,
do
I remember that whole thing happening, and honest to God, I was kind of like, that's the dumbest thing I ever heard, and I laughed about it and forgot about it. And then I really didn't hear anything more. And that's kind of been my talking point through this whole thing. And that's one of the reasons the first question I asked you was, look, what if you just simply ignored it? Wouldn't it just go away?
no.
No, not so much.
You
Because
think it would get worse and be more prevalent? And
This is the American Library Association is a very political
What the hell is the
organization.
American Library Association?
ask Jennifer. She knows.
Where is this Illuminati place?
Illuminati
I believe
library.
it's based in Chicago, but it's the professional organization.
Of course it's based in Chicago. Of course it's based in
It's the
Chicago.
professional organization for librarians, and the taxpayers.
What is there to associate? You got the Dewey Decimal System, and what?
What books are allowed and what
Well,
aren't?
They filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court on the citizenship question on the 2020 census. They
Did
were
they
against
really?
So they're very political.
They're against the Dakota Access Pipeline.
The
Library
Association.
And they are against pornography filters on their computers. They took that all the way to the Supreme Court and they lost. Among many other things. Apparently at the conference in June, they're getting into the illegal immigration debate.
Sneakily.
Hold on a second.
It's going to be the watchword for the day.
So where are the county commissioners on this, Jennifer? You've gone to the meetings. I mean, what is your sense? I mean, I know Todd Morgan. I know I saw the one meeting where he went off and threw his glasses down on the counter, about what was going on with the Drag Queen Story Hour. And then Mr. Colvin was very nice, and let's all be Christian and love each other. I thought that was a very nice message.
And he got a lot of nasty emails and calls over that.
Go figure.
It's so, I know. It's just people, listen, it doesn't matter. Have a blessed day. I am offended.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
I hear that from people all the time. Get over yourself. Mm-hmm. Get over yourself and get over your offense. The person is saying have a good day in their way. So let it go. But what is your sense from the commissioners about can they do anything or no? I mean, they're the ones who control the budget for the county, right?
Now, that's a good point. The library
you,
budget is approximately $3.4 million, give or take a few $100,000.
$3.4 million for the libraries in St. Mary's County.
Yes.
Okay.
That is mostly funded locally. There is some state input into that, and the commissioners have control of part of that budget. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is back before these commissioners, this was in the early 2000s, I believe, or mid-2000s, the commissioners then actually reduced the budget because the librarian at that time refused to put porn filters on the computers. So they reduced her budget in some way, and finally she caved in and allowed them to put porn filters on our computers.
Really? In a library, I think that would probably be a good idea to have porn filters.
You think?
Well, no, I do think it's but you got those people out there that say, my tax dollars help pay this. If I want to go there and look at porn, I'm going to look at porn.
Well,
I mean, those are the people that are arguing.
Okay.
That's what it is.
I know.
They still can. You go up to the library desk if you're one day over 16 years old and ask to have the porn filter removed, and they will remove it. No questions asked.
One day over 16?
Yes.
Really?
Okay.
Oh, my gosh. I told you your kids shouldn't be listening.
But back to how much control the commissioners have.
Please. I'm sorry. We digress.
Part of the problem is the only board in this county that is not selected by the commissioners is the library board. Somehow the library board got into a position where they get to select themselves.
Is that all counties or just St. Mary's?
There are many in Maryland under that same setup.
So they get to select themselves. So
Yes.
Obviously getting like-minded people.
Sure.
And that's exactly what has happened.
Okay.
And
It all seems very sneakily to me.
You just can't get over that, can
the
you?
commissioners have to appoint them. They bring a name to the commissioners.
And then the commissioners have to appoint them.
I'm a morning DJ, okay? It's okay when I'm blazingly dumb. However, when you blanket yourself in the industry of library, you should have a pretty good grip of the English language. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to be sneakily when I say this. You're an idiot.
So you get a sense that the commissioners aren't going to do anything. Because earlier you said they've been hands-off on this.
Yeah. My personal opinion is they don't want to stick their arm in that meat grinder.
Sure, I get it.
Yeah.
They
can't really blame them.
Right, well, they're going to be elected. Or try to be.
And they are going to use free speech is obviously part of the argument
And I
here.
get that, too.
Free speech, taxpayers' dollars, everything goes into a big pot. But your issue is with the libraries, not with the drag queens and not. Well, what can you do about the Library Association? I don't understand how you could do anything. The only way to do that is to take money away. But when you take money away from the Library Association, you take money away from the library, thus the public.
Correct. The library board, you can't do anything about them. And they are essentially have 10-year terms. They each get a 5-year term.
And these are paid positions?
No, this is volunteer, but we pay to send them to all sorts of American Library Association meetings and conferences.
A lot of them in Chicago, are they? Yeah, I bet.
Maybe.
The recent one was up in D.C., so I guess maybe...
Oh, that didn't cost as much.
Right, that didn't cost us too much.
To do that.
They hire and fire the library director.
Okay.
So you've got sort of a little circle there of people that all think alike and like each other, and they don't want a
And if you have a difference of opinion...
It's a weird thing, because I'm already working down the road here, and I'll be quite honest with you. I'm going to pull the radio curtain back just a bit. And my sense is this. Here's how this is going to play out. I would love to talk with some of these people from the library and see what the hell's going on here, because that verbiage is disturbing to me.
Yes.
But here's where it is, and this is what's going to happen. You immediately get labeled a book burner, and you're somehow closed-minded. You're not progressive. Although I don't know what we're progressing to.
I always love the library.
Nobody can seem to answer that. You're not progressing. Well, where are we progressing? If I'm just in a car riding, I want to know where the hell I'm going.
T always says, well, what do you need libraries for? We have the internet. Everybody has a phone, a computer, and stuff like that. I think libraries are great. I think libraries are great in their community because they do offer access to computers. They still have books. People still love to read books. And it is a communal place where people can come with those buildings. They can have their meetings there and things like that. I don't really
have too much of an issue with libraries. I mean, I think they're a little antiquated, but whatever. I think they have their place. But, and I'm not one out there talking about let's ban books. I'm not doing that either.
Gosh, no.
But if you're the librarian, you shouldn't have an agenda.
Right. There
Correct.
shouldn't be an agenda. And it sounds like there is a huge agenda. I got to look up the American Library Association.
There is an agenda, and it's not even sneakily.
Yeah, it's a huge website. But yeah, you can find all sorts of interesting things there.
Huh.
There you go. Well, okay. Jennifer, thank you for coming in today. I appreciate it. I will say good luck to you. My own, just parting. You do what you want with this. And what do I know? It just seems as a casual observer of this, when you hear about the people running in screaming the Bible verses, or the guy that was sprinkling holy water I think the message gets lost in the actions, if that makes sense. And I think there's a better way to do this. I don't know what it is, and I wish you the best of luck. And I said the same thing to the humanists. I wish you the best of luck, because I don't want anybody to be suffering. I don't want anybody to feel like they can't express themselves.
Right, especially at their local library, whether they are conservative, whether they're liberal, whether they're a drag queen, or whether they're a pastor. I think they should all have the same right to go down there and not be assaulted.
But it's just everything seems to be
out of whack.
The needle's always over in the red, man. Everything's pegged at 11. Everybody's nerves are just raw and angry, and I don't know how to dial that back.
But I think you stepped on it a little bit earlier, Jennifer, where you said, I have had conversations with Samantha. She was pleasant. Maybe you don't have Thanksgiving dinner together, but at least you are civil to each other in conversation.
And I will say, when she was in here, I found her to be a delight. I'm going to fix her. And that's
what you said.
That's
on
my
the
goal.
air.
I'm going to get her squared away, because I think there's some hope there.
But again, the basic problem is
it's the library, not the humanist organization or even the drag queens.
Yeah, trying to force sexually explicit material and sexualize children.
Before you go, I know that the humanists sponsored the Drag Queen Story Hour. Does the library have an obligation to vet these gentlemen who come in and tell the story?
I think they do. Michael Blackwell's going to say, I knew nothing about this. I know nothing.
Well, he does now.
Yes.
Well, he does now.
But does he have a responsibility to do that?
Yeah, does he? I mean, it's easy to say you don't know the law, but if you break it, you're still going to go to jail.
Yeah, because if you had this Epstein character that I see in the news, Epstein Story Hour,
right?
Yeah, leave your parents in the car. Yeah, you might have some culpability there.
Right. So, but is there...
No, he would just be loaning them a meeting room.
Okay, so the library directors, they have no obligation to vet who is renting the rooms. None. maybe that's something that the commissioners can say, this is now a responsibility for the board of directors or the library director, which will answer to the board of library, whatever.
Maybe I'll run for that
post. You need to vet
post.
these people to find out. And when somebody comes to you and says, this is maybe somebody who shouldn't be speaking with children because of whatever, their line of work or whatever, maybe listen to that person that's coming to you with information, not with a roll of the eyes or a cluck of the teeth, but maybe take it seriously, because whether it is a conservative backwoods area, okay, as some people might think Southern Maryland is, you got a lot of people who will ask questions of that, because they do have conservative values, and you answer to those conservatives and liberals as well. You need to listen to everybody, no matter what party line you swing on. If you serve the public, you have to put that behind you and listen to conservative opinions and liberal opinions. And I think that's lost on a lot of people when they work for the government, work for the public, and they do have an agenda. And you need to listen to everybody.
And the library board is unelected. They do not have to account to anybody except themselves and the American Library Association. We've tried to go to the meetings, and if you don't sign up ahead of time, they won't let you speak. They're at 9 o'clock in the morning when most working people
They're at work.
go.
Isn't that convenient? Right.
Yeah.
And they're very arrogant. I've sent them emails. They're not very responsive. They kind of answer the question.
And these are members of the St. Mary's County Library Board.
Yes.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming in.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of ground that we barely even scratched the surface.
But I'm glad we got the other side of it, and we're able to discuss where you folks are, and the best of Georgia. Seriously. I hope everything is good, and 100-degree heat being 8 months pregnant is not fun.
Let me ask you, because I believe I asked the humanists as well. You think this is fair, what we did here today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would like to talk more. We never got off on the small town sex ed tour, which I feel was misrepresented in a lot of the media outlets here. It was not
because parents couldn't go in, right? Parents couldn't go in. It was all because that children might be uncomfortable asking certain questions in front of their parents, right? Wasn't that how it was put out there?
It was initially sponsored by the library, and they specifically said you did not have to have a consent form. That was the library-sponsored one, which goes right along with American Library Association thinking, which is asking for parental consent is a form of censorship.
I gotta check out.
All right.
I gotta get to the website today and look it up. That's
well,
great.
Thank you for coming in, and
Thank you so much,
good luck
Jennifer.
with you
It's
with
nice
all
meeting
your endeavors. I hope it works out for you. 11 minutes in front of 8 o'clock. It is 7:49. Let's get a check of traffic. See what's up.